Oh, she asked me how to keep my energy separate from people. I get that question a lot from people. I think part of the reason why I get that question a lot is because, especially when either athletes have worked with me for a while or people are observing me or hear me talk, they think I'm very intuitive and in tune with people, like almost to energy medicine sort of standpoint, which I think I am to a point, but I will say that I rarely feel like I have a problem with separating me from the patient. When I was younger, it definitely was more of a problem. So it was definitely more of a problem when I was younger. And I'll talk about why I think that. But I remember being at Athletes Performance back in the day, and some patients, I would describe them as energy suckers. Like, you like dread the patient because they just like totally drain your energy. And no matter what mood you're in, when you're done with that patient, it's like you're in a bad mood. So over the years, I don't feel like people are as much energy suckers to me, and that's probably more of because of what I'm doing. Because there are still people that are definitely, I would describe as energy suckers. So I had said that one thing I do, and especially when I'm doing the evaluation, because doing a listening is challenging on people. If I'm not separating myself, you'll see me put my hand like on my heart, and then I'll put my hand on them. And in the moment I do that, especially if I'm having a hard time paying attention to what I'm feeling, I literally to myself, I was like, this is me, this is them. And then I'm looking for a clear listening. Like I'm looking for a clear message of what's going on in this body. And that's sometimes helpful. The other thing I've noticed is when I'm having a hard time either paying attention to the client's listening, or when I feel like they start to be a little bit energy sucker, what I've noticed is in my life, that's actually the times of my life when I've gotten away from my self-care. So when I've gotten away from my self-care, it's a little bit harder to separate. And so that is, one of the whole premises of this program, that I wanted you guys to be moving and experiencing things in your own body, in addition to other self-care practices, because it makes you a better clinician, right? Like I gave Steph the mantra that I stole from Rachel Brathen, who's Yoga Girl on Instagram a couple years ago. She said, taking care of business is taking care of me. So I used to have it inverted. I used to think I had, especially as an entrepreneur, like business owner, run the business, do everything myself, like a business person of one, is I used to think like, oh, I need to do all these things to build my business and make money. And then, oh yeah, I have to take care of myself too, like two separate entities. But now it's the mantra of, no, taking care of me is the foundation for taking care of my business, right? So the same thing with my clients. Like I can't take care of them. If my client is my business, I can't take care of them unless I take care of me. And so that I try to make that as much my mantra as possible. The other thing that I talked about when I talked about the importance of self-care is actually like knowing what your go-to self-care things are that are going to fill up your cup and feel like you are doing something to take care of yourself. And everybody's going to be different here. I think as self-care has gotten more popular, feel like, it's almost like they use self-care as an excuse to indulge in things, right? Like go out and drink or go out and spend money, or I don't know what other self-care practices are like that, but things that are not necessarily good for you. So this life coach that I work with, her name's Amy Young. She teaches us about the Sacred Six. And when I learned it from her, I was like, oh, this is really good, because even though I felt like I was pretty good at knowing what self-care practices were sort of my anchors in my day, it really highlighted the importance of like not all self-care feels good, right? So there's 4 types of self-care, or 4 classes, she describes it. And it's like, the first one is it feels good and it's good for you. The second one is it doesn't feel good, but it's good for you. The third one is it feels good, but it's not good for you. And the fourth one is it doesn't feel good and it's not good for you, right? So as you can imagine, the anchors of our day, the Sacred Six that we would like to make sure that we get in on a regular basis, as many of the 6 as possible on a daily basis, are going to be the first 2 classes of self-care. The things that feel good and are good for you, and don't feel good that are good for you, right? So examples of these things that feel good and are good for you might be, it might be going outside and taking a walk, right? Like, it feels good to get outside and have fresh air, and we know that that's really good for you, right? The exercise is good and the being outside in nature is good. Now, the second one, it doesn't feel good, but it's good for you. This is very individual, right? So I hate working out for the most part. Ironic given my profession, but I really don't really like a regimented workout, like weightlifting or like classes, that kind of thing. And so even though I loved my Soul Cycle class today because it had dancing, Beyonce in it, for the most part, I hate going and sweating. Like, I love it after the fact, but in the moment, there's many other things that I would be rather doing during my day than sweating my ass out and struggling on the bike, right? So that would be doesn't feel good, but really good for me. Yeah. Or another example of that is like, I don't really love vegetables. I'd rather eat cupcakes all day long, right? Cupcakes taste way better, so I enjoy that a lot more. But eating vegetables, I might not like it, but I know it's good for me, right? So getting my vegetables in during the day, that might be a simple practice of self-care. So thinking of things in that way instead of doing generic things like, I don't know what generic self-care things are, massages or baths, or it doesn't have to be spa oriented, right? It doesn't have to be body oriented. One of the things I shared on my Sacred Six is working on content for the mentorship, for blog posts, for videos for my athletes. Like, even though I love what I do, I hate sitting down and actually recording videos and writing out content because it feels a lot like work. I would rather be outside with the athletes and working with them, my hands on them, right? And so that's an example of something that doesn't feel good, but is good for me. Why is it good for me? Because it's taking care of my business, but it's also, once I'm doing it, it feels like it does feel good. Like, I'm glad I did it, and it takes care of things that I know need to get done, right? So examples of things that feel good and aren't good for you, like I said, like indulging in drinking and cupcakes and shopping, like all of those things, they feel really good in the moment, and you want them to be self-care because it's like, oh, like treat yourself sort of self-care. But at the end of the day, they're not that good for you, right? You know they're not that good for you. And so that's not like, yes, you can consider it self-care, and sometimes you do want to indulge in that stuff, but that shouldn't be your daily practice of self-care. Your daily practice of self-care should be those first 2 classes of self-care. And then the fourth one that doesn't feel good and isn't good for you, I don't even know what an example of that would be, and I forget what Amy gives, but it kind of is like, I don't know why you would really be doing it anyways. So hopefully that clarifies some things around figuring out what's good self-care for you. So, and like I said, I provided my 6. It's journaling, it's reading or listening to inspiring upbeat music, and or podcasts, like inspiring podcasts. It's drinking at least 95 ounces of water a day. Unfortunately, it's sweating, which I hate to do, but it's really good for me. And it's writing content, and it's getting outside, right? So those are the 6 things that I know I need to do, ideally on a daily basis, to really feel like I'm filling up my cup. Okay. So the goal is to figure out what your 6 are and then start practicing it. And the best way to start practicing the new habits is to anchor it to something you're already doing, right? So an anchor is something you're already doing. So you plan your self-care activity after something you're already doing, right? So it's like if you brush your teeth every morning, or you have a cup of coffee every morning, if you want to start adding journaling in your life, you would say, okay, I'm going to journal after I brush my teeth, or after I drink my coffee, or while I'm drinking my coffee, right? Because then it's already something that you're doing on a daily basis. So then you're just adding one more step to that daily habit, and it makes it easier to then create that new self-care thing as your daily habit. Yeah. So, for example, my thing is, one of my things that I tried to add in, because I slack off on it a bit, is the reading something inspirational or listening to podcasts, listening to upbeat music. So in the mornings, I used to go on my phone and look at social media and check emails and kind of get sucked into that vortex. That would be an example of something that doesn't always feel good and is probably not very good for you, right? And so instead, when I wake up and I look at my phone to see who texts me, the first thing I do is turn on upbeat music. And that helps to get me out of bed, put me in a good mood. And then I don't even sometimes go back to the phone and look at social media and stuff, right? Like I go right into making my coffee and journaling and starting my day. So using anchors is a really great way to implement new habits.